You guys know Alcatraz, right? Home of former major, massive criminal Al Capone out there in San Francisco land. So maybe you get that thing back up and running, huh? Van Bondi certainly likes the idea.
The president suggested over the weekend maybe rebuild and reopen Alcatraz, put him there in the middle of the Pacific Ocean someplace.
I'm all for that. All for that. And I think it will be a cost savings. We'll have specially trained guards. They'll be in isolation. They won't be able to run their businesses. And it sends a very strong message that if you do this, you are going to be out of our society forever.
Huh. So part of this might be a little bit of marketing, right? A really scary prison. Alcatraz obviously conjures up certain images. I think there's an Escape from Alcatraz movie, that kind of thing. Scott Jennings was on CNN just last night, and, you know, he's become kind of a household name. If anybody watches CNN, you're going to be watching it for Scott Jennings because he's like the only person that will fight back against their panel of liberals. God bless him, right? God bless him. You could not pay me any kind of amount of money to go on and deal with the liberals on some of these networks. I mean, it's painful. But he does a really good job at it. He's talking about Alcatraz here. And why wouldn't we have it, right? Why wouldn't you have a place to put people? We are already short on prison space. Why not? Oh, they didn't like it. Take a listen.
This is the era of Doge. The idea of reopening a prison that's been closed for many, many decades because it just doesn't make sense to house people there. Why?
Well, does it? I don't know. He said he was going to study it. I mean, we have a prison overcrowding problem. You've been fussing about recently him sending American criminals overseas to their prisons. Don't we need more prisons in the United States? What's wrong with it?
Okay. Well, okay.
I mean, what's the matter?
All right, let's take it at face value. Why Alcatraz? It costs 3 times as much to put prisoners there than to put them. You could go put them in the desert.
You're on an actuarial study on it over the weekend?
All right. Let me.
I mean, we don't know.
All right. Hold on.
What's wrong with studying?
All right. Don't take my word for it. Here's the Federal Bureau of Prisons. Alcatraz closed after 29 years of operation because the institution was too expensive to continue operating. An estimated $3 to $5 million was needed just for restoration and maintenance work to keep the prison open. That figure did not include the daily operating costs. Alcatraz was nearly 3 times more expensive to operate than any other federal prison. It is in the middle of a body of water.
What would it cost to build a new one? How many millions? I don't know, but I know we need more prisons. I know we need more space.
All right. You know, it's also
I'm fine to study it. I don't have a problem with studying it.
It's also possible to say that this doesn't seem to make a lot of sense.
It's all right, Scott, to call it a dumb idea. You know that,
well,
right?
It's okay, because I don't know that even Trump is all that sold on this idea, to be honest.
Why not? I mean, really. You can't even contemplate it. You can't even think about it. Here's the problem you see with the left right now. Anything that Donald Trump says, anything, they're going to go bonkers over. I mean, the fact that he's trying to control the border, this actually used to be their platform. Do you guys remember when Barack Obama was, he actually rather infamously deported more people that were here in this country illegally than any of his predecessors. And you know what? He ran in part on this. I'm looking for a soundbite because I want to prove it to you. I want to show you exactly what he had to say about all of those people that were here illegally. And he had absolute intention of getting rid of them. This is the Democrat Party from not too long ago. It wasn't until Donald Trump showed up, and Donald Trump actually stole their agenda, if you think about it, right? A lot of the working class agenda that was framed around some of the, I'm not even going to say anti-immigration, but anti-illegal immigration that had been going on. I mean, why wouldn't you be for legal immigration? Unless, of course, you're trying to influence votes, unless you're trying to actually get votes, unless you're trying to actually gerrymander your way around how many representatives you have in Congress. And let's not kid ourselves. That's a lot of what this came back to, was it not? Absolutely. They were looking to have more people in certain populations in certain states in order to get more members of Congress. And they took it even further. And this is no longer conspiratorial because the New York Times reported on this. They wanted 800,000 non-citizens to actually be able to vote in New York elections. All right, I'm not seeing it here, but you know what? We can go back and look at the shorts feed anytime. Go check my shorts feed out here on YouTube because, oh, wait, I spoke too soon. I think we got it, ladies and gentlemen. Here he is. The left really doesn't want you to see this.
Administration, the Bush administration, has done nothing to control the problem that we have. We've had 5 million undocumented workers come over the borders since George Bush took office. It has become an extraordinary problem. And the reason the American people are concerned is because they are seeing their own economic position slip away.
Wow. Interesting. So that was Barack Obama. You go back, you look at Hillary Clinton, you look at any of the Democrats. They used to point fingers at Bush and the Republicans and say, oh, they just want cheap labor, etc. And then Donald Trump comes in 2016, goes down the escalator, talks about how we need a big red carpet for people that are going to come here legally that we want, but we want to get rid of the illegal immigration. And suddenly that's no-go territory. Just like, oh, maybe we reopen Alcatraz. Rather than build a whole new one, why don't we retrofit one that we have? Won't that work? And suddenly they hate the idea because they hate everything that he's talking about. I wonder if they hate this, the idea that we got to improve the FAA because we get an FAA that's a total disaster. I mean, DEI may have had a thing or two to do with it, right? We've talked about that here. But it's also the reality that we just haven't been feeding enough new people into the FAA that are qualified. I mean, that may be DEI. But nobody is coming in that can actually do these jobs. And now, big story out of Newark. I was in it myself, you guys. You know, remember I was flying down to Savannah and I was supposed to leave that afternoon and my flight had been rearranged. And then I spent like 7 hours at the Newark, New Jersey airport, just where you want to hang, right? Lovely. I did have my son with me, so that was an added bonus. But it was in part because they couldn't get flights out. A lot of the flights that would have otherwise been going to Savannah, Georgia, that United would have been flying, were being canceled. Flight after flight after flight after flight, because I didn't know it at the time. A 90-second outage had happened at Newark Airport. 90 seconds where air traffic control had no idea what was going on in the skies. They couldn't see anything. You know what's really scary? The backup system failed too. Sean Duffy, all over it. You know, I'll give him credit for this. Because where was Pete Buttigieg? Remember when the train derailed and the whole town out there in the Midwest was suffering and Pete Buttigieg wouldn't even bother to show up? Sean Duffy's always on the scene. You got to give him credit for that. This entire administration, super transparent. Anyway, Sean went on with Laura Ingraham last night and talked about this. And he's like, look, we got old infrastructure. Thank you very much, Biden. 30, 40-year-old infrastructure and nobody bothered to update. Not to mention we need better, newer people at the FAA that are not DEI candidates that really can do the job. Here he is with Laura. Listen in.
Let's talk about what happens. We have really old infrastructure in America. It hasn't been updated in the last 30, 40 years. This should have been dealt with in the last administration. They did nothing. So the primary communication line went down. The backup line didn't fire. And so for 30 seconds, we lost contact with air traffic control.
That's a big problem.
It is. Now, were planes going to crash? No, they have communication devices. They can see other air traffic like GPS in the airplanes. But it's a sign that we have a frail system in place, and it has to be fixed. But by the way, so there's delays now at Newark. Well, if you're driving down the road at 70 miles an hour and you get white paint in your windshield, you slow down. So we've slowed the traffic down at Newark. There's a runway that's under construction, and our primary goal is to make sure people are safe. And so when you have an incident like this, both lines now work, Laura, but when you have an incident like this, you want to make sure that people are safe. And so you just have less departures out of the airport until we feel comfortable and safe that the system isn't going to go down again.
So United is
going to have to bear the brunt of some of that. They're going to have to get all the airlines together, really, and say, okay, what can we do to improve this? I'm going to go out on a limb and say, you know what? You probably need to pay the FAA guys more. Oh, yeah, imagine that. Like, I was reading, they are well paid. They're some of the best jobs you can get in government, but they work a zillion hours, and they make them retire. I think the age is 55, because they can't even let you stick around until 60, or maybe you retire at 60 instead of 65. They can't let you stay because it's such a high stress job. Okay, well, if it's such a high-stress job, then we really, really need to pay them accordingly, right? Kind of like the emergency room doctor or the emergency room nurse. They should command a premium because of the stress level. So I don't have a problem with that. You know what? You're going to have to charge more for flights. Maybe the airlines have less profitability. Again, I don't really have a problem. And this is speaking as a, red-blooded American capitalist here. I don't have a problem with it because, above all, you need safe skies. And so when we're thinking about where our taxpayer dollars go, when we're thinking about whether or not some of the airlines should take on some of the burden, I say yes, 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 right? I mean, of all the places that our taxpayer dollars go, we ought to at least be able to ensure the safety of our skies. Thank you very much. So the Trump administration has another project that it is gearing up for. And I mean gearing up because it's only been 100 and some odd days, and this is serious stuff. We do have another situation right now. You've got Newark Airport employees like just walking off, FAA workers walking off the job following an equipment malfunction. That was the 90 days I told you about. They were referencing 30 days on Fox, but the truth is it turned out to, 90 seconds, not days. That would be really bad, right? We definitely wouldn't be flying anywhere. 90 seconds with no ability to communicate. Imagine that, guys. At Newark Liberty International Airport. I hate that airport too. You know what? I think it's kind of a icky airport that's always delayed, and that's an issue. So after this failure on April 28th, which left Federal Aviation Administration workers with no ears or eyes for 90 seconds, many of the controllers at the Philadelphia-based center took trauma leave. Like 20% of them just walk off the job. They're like, we can't handle this. I mean, here I was saying pay them more, but that makes me kind of think twice about it. You know what? It's part of the gig, guys. Yeah, listen, I've had to cover all kinds of natural disasters as a reporter in the field. Do I get trauma leave? No. I mean, I'm sure it was stressful. It couldn't have been great. I'm sure for 90 seconds, you were absolutely terrified that all things were going to go wrong. But you know what? You get back in your seat and you do your job. That's kind of the American way, right? If you're going to take trauma leave every time something happens, then I don't think we really have a functioning FAA. Again, get the best people. I don't care what color they are. I don't care what sex they are. I don't care. Just give me the best possible people and pay them well and make sure that they're not sitting there like a bunch of sissies and saying, we need trauma leave, this, that, and the other. No, they got to do their job and keep us safe. And they should be paid and treated accordingly. So Donald Trump wants these improvements. I think he's going to get them. He better get them, right? Because we all fly. There was that Black Hawk crash, horrific crash, and some people debate whether or not DEI came into that situation. It was a female pilot. We'll let that lay. We'll talk about it another time. But I would say that one of the big takeaways from that crash in D.C. was that you shouldn't have all that traffic, right? You don't want these consumer jets flying into the airport at Regan National, all while you get the Blackhawks going here, there, and everywhere. One of the questions people are asking now is, why is it that a military Army Black Hawk was actually flying a quote-unquote VIP person? And who the heck was that VIP? Sean Duffy kind of let it slip. They think it was maybe a 2-star general. What are the 2-star generals doing, getting flown around? They actually had to have 2 of these commercial jets have a different landing pattern because the helicopter needed to come through the airspace. Give me a break. Watch.
The Army, in addition to this problem at Newark, the Army is pausing all helicopter flights near D.C. after those 2 commercial planes had to abort landings because of a Black Hawk taking the, quote, scenic route around the Pentagon for a VIP. This is 13 weeks after 67 people were killed in that horrific crash with another Black Hawk. Who was that VP they were taking the scenic tour for?
That's the question.
VIP.
Right? So they have to have a mile and a half nautical separation, nautical miles, 500 feet separation as well. They breached that airspace, the helicopter did, and so 2 airplanes had to go around. The question becomes, who are the VIPs? Is it a 2-star, 3-star general? There's a lot of traffic going into the Pentagon. Oh. The top brass at the White House, they take a Suburban or a Tesla or they take their own car. Who do these generals think they are that they have to take helicopters to go to meetings
was
or go
it?
to I don't know who it was. We should find out. And well, the DOD
Well, who
has,
do we ask? I mean, you're the transportation secretary. How do you not know?
The FAA doesn't know. We asked the DOD. The DOD has promised radical transparency. They should tell us who is qualified to take a helicopter out of the Pentagon. I don't know, but they have to tell us.
Well, could you just call up HEGSA?
Well, I should actually. Why don't
Let's
you call
him right now?
You call Pete.
Okay,
Dial
I got
in.
it. I got the phone.
She actually has a phone right by her desk.
Yeah, I do. I'm ready for that.
But those are the answers that we need. Again, when we have these near misses, you got to stop the traffic. And listen, the president, the vice president, Pete Hegseth, they all should fly in helicopters. But a 2-star? I mean, come on. And again, it's suspect when they won't tell you who the VIP is.
I'm with them. I mean, I'd really like to know. And by the way, Pete, yeah, I think you should be able to answer that question relatively soon. And Laura should call him. Maybe I'll email him. Listen, we need to make sure that we're not taking unnecessary risks or unnecessary chances. I think I was stunned, probably as much as you guys, when I found out that they actually use that for flight training. I mean, you're training people in potential conflict with consumer jetliners? Come on. We got to be able to do better than that. And we're flying these 2-star, 3-star generals around. If it was a general, we don't know who the VIP was. We don't know. And that information should come out. And Duffy's right to be asking those questions. And he knows Pete, and he can pick up the phone, and he can call him. And we need to stay on that, because no, you shouldn't be flying around VIPs and having consumer jetliners possibly in danger and having to completely reorchestrate their landing pattern. It's just wrong.